You will now want to take out the handout, Plant List for PowerPoint. The next slides will have numbered photos that correspond to the native plants on this list. As we go along, note the plants that appeal to you, and you can do research on them later. Also, in Appendix C, the HIP native plant list has information on the growing conditions for many of these listed plants, as well as the mature heights and widths. This list is also helpful as all the plants listed are Washington natives, and you can take this to the nursery with you. A native plant is one that has existed in our region prior to the arrival of European settlers. This is generally the cutoff because settlers brought plants and seeds with them from their homelands. To ensure that you get the plant that you are looking for, the scientific name is one that is unique to any given plant. This name will help you distinguish native plants from the non-native ones. Common names can be regional and can often be used for a variety of different species depending on where you live. If you are looking at a plant in the nursery and the common name is followed by a name in single quotes or has an X before another name, you are looking at a hybrid or cultivar that may not be reimbursable. The hybrids and cultivars that are reimbursable are noted on the HIP plant list in Appendix C. The scientific name is made up of two names: the genus, a classification of a group of plants with like characteristics, and the species name is the name that is given to a particular plant in that group. An easy way to remember this is that genus is generic and the species is specific. Each genus may have many species. Some have only a few. This name can be very descriptive. In this case, the genus Acer is the name for maples. The species name, Macrophyllum, means large leaf. This is the name for bigleaf maple. Species names can also describe where a plant can be found and what conditions it prefers. Rivularis refers to a riverside habitat. Marittima refers to a maritime habitat. A species name can also refer to the plant's discoverer. Archibald Menzies was Captain Vancouver's botanist on the 1790 expedition of exploration. Many plants have the species name of Menziesii. David Douglas, a Scottish botanist, is best known as the namesake of the Douglas fir. Interestingly, the scientific name for Douglas fir is Pseudotsuga menziesii, also honoring botanist Archibald Menzies. Meriwether Lewis discovered and described many new species of plants during the 1805 voyage of discovery. Many plants also have the scientific name Louisii. The common names of plants can refer to some interesting stories about the plants. Serviceberry may have gotten its name in the eastern U.S., specifically in the Appalachian Mountains. This is due to the time of year that it bloomed, which corresponded to the spring thaw. Prior to the thaw, traveling preachers were not able to visit local communities. When this shrub flowers, it let folks know that the roads are passable and preachers could resume services like weddings and funerals. Salmon berries look a lot like salmon eggs. There are many stories from the native peoples in the Pacific Northwest about the naming of this plant. Some gardeners might just change the name on a whim because the plant reminds them of something, or there is something that they do not like about the name. Here, Western is substituted for false for this Solomon seal. Ethnobotany is a scientific study of the traditional knowledge and customs of a people concerning plants and their medical, religious, and other uses. Western red cedar provided for many of the needs of the early coastal tribes. It provided building materials, fishing tools, clothing, baskets, and even medicines. Many plants have medicinal uses, some of which have been used as precursors to some of our modern-day medicines. Please do your own research on the use of these types of plants. Ginger was found to have antifungal and antibiotic properties. Tea made from its roots can relieve an upset stomach. Cascara bark was boiled to make a strong laxative tea. At one time, it was available as an over-the-counter laxative, but is now banned. Lyell's angelica was used to treat digestive orders and problems with blood circulation. Arnica has and is still used as a treatment for bruises and sprains. Many plants have been traditionally eaten and are still wild harvested for food today. Prickly pear cactus pads or nopales are eaten as a vegetable. The small round fruit can also be eaten. Fireweed stems were peeled and the central pith eaten. Bees kindly convert the nectar of this plant into the most delicious honey. Spring gold, also known as desert parsley, can be used, you guessed it, like parsley. Camas arise from an underground bulb which was steamed for a long period of time to break down a component that made it indigestible. When fully steamed, this bulb was sweet and used to sweeten other foods. Beaked hazelnuts produce edible nuts, but it can be difficult to beat the birds to them. Nodding onion is another edible bulb. This is one plant deer tend to avoid. The Pacific Northwest is rich in plants that provide edible berries. Buffalo berry, soapberry, or sopalali was whipped up with water and other sweeter berries to make a frothy concoction known as Indian ice cream. Oregon grape can be eaten, but is rather sour. They are also often mixed with other berries when used. Salmonberry, though not the most tasty, are one of the first fruits to ripen in the spring. Salal berries were one that were used to sweeten other berries. They are juicy and make a good jam. Thimbleberries and blackcap raspberries are native raspberries. The former is thornless, the latter is very thorny. Blue elderberries can be processed into juice, jelly, and wine. Evergreen huckleberries, cranberries, and currants can also be eaten and wild harvested. All birds, butterflies, and insects share an evolutionary history with native plants. This doesn't mean that some wildlife won't make use of blooms of ornamentals or the fruits of non-native trees. Some animals are generalists and can make use of a variety of plants, but others are specialists, dependent on specific plants or plants on specific pollinators. Think the monarch butterfly. Butterflies like the monarch require what are called larval host plants. Caterpillars can only feed on the plants which are specific to each species of butterfly. This is one of the reasons that butterfly bush is not the best plant for butterflies. Caterpillars born on this plant will starve. Its aggressive nature also displaces many of the native larval host plants. Native plants have evolved with and are adapted to our climate. They follow our schedules too. They break dormancy in the spring when we are ready to emerge from our winter confines. They are flowering in time with our native pollinators' arrival, and they tolerate seasonal moisture patterns. Then they take a break and go dormant in the winter when we're ready as well. Native plants rival in beauty with many exotic species. In fact, many of our natives are prized ornamentals in other countries. They do more than just provide shelter and food for birds and other wildlife. They make our Pacific Northwest landscapes incredibly beautiful. Once established, native landscapes are low maintenance, not no maintenance. By nurturing soil organisms, native plants do not need fertilizer and will attract many predatory insects to control pests. They take advantage of precipitation cycles and reduce the need to water. And don't worry about fall cleanup. Many of the spent blooms and leaf litter will shelter beneficial insects, frogs, and other living creatures in your space. Clean up in the spring to avoid impacts to these beneficial creatures. Keep notes and edit your plantings as needed. Good gardening techniques will still need to be implemented. Using the concept of right plant, right place will help reduce your chore list like watering and fertilizing. This means matching the plant's needs to your garden conditions. You will still need to provide extra care until the plants are established. Mulch will feed the soil, not the plants. Limit pruning, fertilizing, and overwatering. Some plants are generalist and can grow in a variety of conditions, like the ocean spray shown here. Some are specialists and are limited to certain soil, moisture, or sun exposures. The skunk cabbage here is a wetland plant and requires very wet, mucky soil. Natives can be planted alongside non-natives. You are allowed 10% non-native plants in your landscape. Just remember that they will not be reimbursable. If you are upgrading an existing bed, non-native plants can be counted as existing plants. Fringe cup is a lovely native plant whose greenish leaves turn darker with age. Here it is seen with non-native creeping raspberry and a bright green carex. All three species of Oregon grape put on a show in the spring with its fragrant bright yellow flowers. In the winter, dark purple berries stand out against the leaves which have turned reddish for the winter. Create a natural appearance by incorporating non-living elements of an ecosystem into the landscape, such as logs and rocks. Leaf structure can be used to create interest. Different shapes and colors or evergreen leaves provide visual appeal. You may want to keep things simple by choosing only a few of your favorite species or colors. Repeat throughout. Or you might decide to mix things up a bit more. Either way, plant ground covers in clusters of 3 or more plants. This will increase their visual impact and be more attractive to wildlife. Remember the rule of 3: 1/3 structure, 1/3 evergreen, and 1/3 seasonal interest. Research seasonal bloom times to create a landscape that will amaze you all year as well as support our native pollinators. Trees can function as windbreaks. They can reduce energy bills by keeping cold winds out and providing shade in the summer. They can act as walls and privacy breaks. The western red cedar, the Douglas fir, and the western hemlock are the tall, iconic conifers of the Pacific Northwest. These may already exist on your lot. Due to their large, mature size, they are not typically used in new landscapes. These trees commonly reach heights in excess of 100 feet. The western hemlock is the state tree of Washington. There are some smaller conifers which include the reimbursable cultivar Excelsa red cedar. This is a variety of the native western red cedar. It should only reach heights of about 35 to 40 feet. Shore pine are more open and airy, reaching about 35 feet in height. Mountain hemlock is an alpine species that will grow more slowly in the lowlands, rarely reaching 30 feet. Seaside juniper can be found along the coastline. Check them out at Washington Park and Anacortes. They grow slowly and rarely exceed 40 feet. Cascara, birch, cherry, and oak are some medium-sized deciduous trees. Deciduous trees are those that lose their leaves every fall. 2 hybrid dogwoods are eligible for reimbursement. Hybrids are produced by 2 species of the same genus. Here, our native Pacific dogwood, Cornus natalii, has been crossed with the eastern species, Cornus florida, to make the hybrid Eddie's White Wonder, and a non-native dogwood, Cornus cosa, to make the Venus hybrid. These 2 hybrids tend to be easier to establish than the true native and tend to be more resistant to the fungal disease anthracnose. These smaller native trees are sometimes called tall shrubs. These species can flower and provide a colorful fall display. Shrubs are great as focal plants because they provide a variety of visual interest. Choose both deciduous and evergreen species and repeat throughout to unify your design. Pacific wax myrtle, hairy manzanita, tall Oregon grape, and snowbrush are some of the taller evergreen shrubs. We have one native rhododendron in Washington, and it is the state flower. It only comes in pink. The yellow twig dogwood here looks really good with the rhodie, though not an evergreen. It's the cultivar of the native red twig dogwood. It makes an impression even without foliage or flowers. Here are some examples of medium to low evergreen shrubs. Here are some examples of deciduous shrubs that make great focal plants. The red twig dogwood provides winter interest with its bright red stems. Mock orange, ninebark flower beautifully in the summer, and mock orange smells sweet. Red huckleberries have edible berries, and the sweet shrub is scented. Deciduous shrubs are diverse in size, blooms, fruits, and fall color. Indian plum and twinberry have fruits better left to the birds. In the Pacific Northwest, we have 3 species of spirea. Douglasii is the most common in our lowland environments. It really thrives and spreads in wet environments, but in drier areas it won't get so out of control. Splendens and lucida are shorter shrub options and have either pink or white flowers. We also have 3 species of native rose. They vary in preferred habitat, flower size, and shape of the hips. Roses can form thickets and so will need a lot of space to spread out. Ground covers are the anchor plants. Some will spread, connecting the bare spaces between other plants. Some will clump and are present only during the growing season when they bloom. Some are evergreen and will stay green year-round. Plant these in clusters or groups. It will give your landscape a more complete feel. Evergreen ground covers spread slowly. They will cover the mulch layer year-round, reducing erosion and weed seed germination. Some native ferns are evergreen, like deer fern, sword fern, and licorice fern. The delicate maidenhair fern flitters on thin ebony stems and will die back each fall. Some ground covers will spread. Some more quickly, like false lily of the valley, oxalis, or coastal strawberry, and others more slowly, like bunchberry, inside-out flower, and bleeding heart. The flowers of native perennials are as varied in shape and colors as any of those in the conventional nurseries. Some you may even be familiar with: anemone, goat's beard violet, lupin, columbine. These are all commonly cultivated plants. There are so many beautiful native wildflowers. Be sure to include a variety and enjoy. We hope that you have learned that native plants are well suited for landscaping. We have only scratched the surface with the plants shown here. Do research, visit native plant nurseries and local demonstration gardens for inspiration. A great resource for learning about native plants is the King County Native Plant website. You can search for plants, view the example landscape plans, create a plant list, and find other resources to help you succeed with your landscape. You can create a printable list by searching for plants that are well suited to the characteristics of your site. In Appendix C, we have included sample plans provided by the King County Native Plant Guide website. These examples can help you visualize what your landscape could look like. There are examples for a variety of site conditions that include plants and ideas on how to layer them. In your binder, each of the plans includes information on the listed plants on the back. Your search for native plants may be challenging. We do have 2 native plant nurseries in Whatcom County. Fourth Corner Nursery is a wholesale nursery who specializes in bare root plants, container plants, and bulbs. While a wholesale supplier, they do have a retail day on the last Friday of the month where container plants can be purchased. Bare root plants are only available in late winter or early spring, and you may be required to purchase these in bundles of 50 or more. Plantus Nativa is a resale nursery in Bellingham. They are located on Champion Street and have limited hours. This is a great nursery just to do some browsing. They have container plants of varying sizes, which can help you visualize what they might look like as larger plants. There are also special sales, usually in the spring. In March, the Whatcom Conservation District holds their annual native bare root plant sale. There, bare root plants can be purchased in smaller quantities, though quantities and species are limited. In May, the Native Plant Society and the WSU Master Gardeners each hold sales. The Master Gardener sale is not limited to natives, but does have a native section and experts on hand to answer questions. The Washington Native Plant Society sale is limited to native plants, usually only those that can be found in Whatcom County.